You're listening to Work, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage meant. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolf.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks, good evening. I am Rick Robinson, one half of the crew. We are live right now on KLRNradio.com. You are listening to Jenn and Rick, hour 2 of the 3-hour trifecta, or 3-hour train wreck, depending on how you want to look at it, of yours truly, anchoring an entire night. So if you've just tuned in, you missed me on Jess's POV. Honestly, you didn't miss much, but I was sitting in for Jess. She's actually out chasing a story and dealing with some other stuff. As far as I know, she plans on being back on Monday. We are now live on KLRNradio.com doing the usual Tuesday, Thursday thing with the Jenn and Rick show, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Jen Homestead, who puts up with me twice a week. So good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Hello. So if y'all hear some noise in the background tonight, my little one is once again unsupervised while I am doing this, and he is currently in the bathtub, so there might be some splashing sounds, just saying. Most of the time I'll get it muted, but every now and then I'll miss a few.
That's all right. So basically...
Yeah. No, he is. I was like, oh gosh, I can't not put you in the bath tonight, and at 10 o'clock it's too late, so... how about he likes to play for like quite a long time, so good. Have at it.
Dude, yeah, I was always that way. I'd be in there till I...
Oh, absolutely. He's got boats and cars and figurines and, squirt, those animals that squirt, they squirt out of their mouths so you can fill them up and squirt them. And I'm sure the dog's going to get a little bit wet too, but whatever. It's all good.
Fun times. All right. So I've been talking for an hour already. So where do you want to go first?
I don't know. How about just this? We already kind of knew this was going to happen. We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday. This is that when the Democrats were saying do something, they didn't really mean it, because what they meant was do what we want you to do, not like actually do something. So, and there we go. There's a dog barking. Just 1 second. Okay. So, anyways, we knew that they weren't going to mean it like they say. And so here they were screaming, do something, do something, do something. And then they said, Cruz proposes a bill. And they're like, no, but not him, not that way. It's just a cynical ploy. It has nothing, this is not going to make it better for people. Okay, sure, it makes family separation illegal and it won't allow them to do that anymore, but it does nothing to help the ones that are, separated now. And, of course, like it wants to help with the, expedite the true asylum cases, but actually that's not good enough either, because we have no idea how he could make that happen. Okay, he wanted to appoint more judges. Where would we even get more judges? There's a lot of really highly qualified lawyers in the lineup to get judgeships. So there's that. Well, but 2 weeks isn't long enough to prepare a case. Well, you just said you wanted it to be a faster process, so we're making it a faster process. Well, not that fast. I mean, the excuses and the coming back against it was just insane. So then they're like, okay, so don't do that. So then a bunch of them started saying, what we need is an executive order. We need something right now, right this minute, that will go into effect today. We want Trump to use an executive order. We're all like looking around going, wait, what? I'm sorry. You want him to wield the power of the guy that you say is a crazy, unhinged, Nazi, idiot, undisciplined, all the things you want him to do to increase his power through executive order. Okay, great. So he signs the EO. As soon as that happens, what happens today? It's not enough. It's not enough. They shouldn't even be detained at all. They shouldn't have to stay at a facility at all. They should be released back. Okay, so then he does that. It's still not enough. You know why? Because they won't be happy until we have full amnesty and an open border with no limitations. This has nothing to do with compromise, nothing to do with the children, nothing to do with actually helping these families in any way, shape, or form. And it has everything to do with continuing to drive their agenda their way or the highway. There can be nothing less. Period.
Yeah. It's just crazy because, I mean, I saw a deal earlier where they were talking about the Democratic answer to, because, you know, everybody's trying to get these bills through the House right now, and they apparently rejected what they're calling the uber conservative one, which I hadn't had a chance to look at because I was cramming my brain with international stuffs. But then I saw that the left had their own version of some stuff that they say would fix it. But they didn't even have any language in their bill that specifically addressed, you know, illegal immigration. So basically what they were de facto doing, and I'm not sure if they realized it or not, I'm sure somebody did, was basically making it impossible for federal law enforcement agencies to enforce any law against anyone, period.
Well, not only that, another thing that, you know, people are going about theirs is that, what in the world, how come if Republicans really want to do it, then they would support the Democratic measures that are already, you know, that have already been formed. My answer to them is, well, we don't have to. We have a majority in Congress, so you need to come to us. Sorry. That's the way the game's played. We don't have to, just because a Republican is against some of what's going on there, that doesn't mean that they have to sign on to a completely Democratic sponsored and controlled, language controlled bill. No, they get to make one and say, hey guys, if you want to join us, and then put their money where their mouth is. Do they really care or do they really not? And that's politics. I mean, that's how the game's played. It's what they do to us when they're in power. Or that's what they do to Republicans when Democrats are in power, and Republicans just mostly, you know, play more civil politics than that. But they don't have to jump on board with a democratically sponsored bill, especially not one that, like you said, seems to leave much exposed.
Yeah. So, you know, I have a response to any Democrat or any liberals. You know, you guys aren't doing enough to reach across the aisle. Barack Obama, 2009, elections have consequences. Hey, Dems, suck it. Elections have consequences. That's my response. Because if it was good enough for Obama, then damn it, it's good enough for me. But you
don't care about the children, Rick. You don't care. You don't care about the poor people. You don't care about the brown people.
And they didn't care about them from 2009 to 2014, so what the hell difference does it make now?
Exactly. It's just this idea that there is some sort of like higher moral integrity and civility and whatever, it is just laughable compared to what they railroaded the last 8 years. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to buy your BS.
It's just nuts. I mean, I have been in a knife fight on pretty much every form of social media in regards to this whole immigration thing for days. And honestly, while I understand why he did what he did, I thought what Donald Trump did was actually masterful to a point, because he actually started showing us exactly how effed up our immigration policy for decades, and nobody's talked about it because it was all a thing of selective enforcement. And I think in some ways, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but what he managed to do was point out, if we don't fix this, then some point somebody's going to come in and enforce this stuff as it's written, and nobody's going to like it. So what he did was say, you know, he listened to Sessions, who said we should do this zero tolerance thing, and he's like, okay, cool. So then he kept saying, I don't really want to do this. I'm trying to get Congress to fix it. So Congress needs to fix it. Congress is like, this is terrible. You're ripping families away from children, blah, 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 blah. So these 12,000 kids that they're talking about, you know, because there's that huge number everybody throws around. Oh my God, 12,000 children are in detention centers all across the country. Guess what? 10,000 of those kids are unaccompanied minors. 10,000 of them are unaccompanied minors.
Yeah, and I keep hearing a lot of numbers thrown around, and I haven't been able to really find anything that truly sources what it is. But that's something else that we talked about. That number and that issue has been an issue for 35 years. at least. This is not a new thing. The problem is that they want to use some of those kids and minors as if it is a brand new thing. And they don't want to acknowledge that there's a big, huge chunk of them that are unaccompanied. And that doesn't mean that they just wandered through the desert by themselves. Like some people are like, oh, you really think that they could find their way to the American border? No, I'm talking about a lot of them are not with actual legal guardians, or they're with older siblings, older cousins, very young aunts or uncles, a family friend, neighbors, things like that they themselves are usually in the 16, sometimes even 14 to like 20, 21 range. So it doesn't mean that they're unaccompanied in that, an 8-year-old wandered across the Mexican terrain to end up on the border to cross illegally. But it does mean that they came with groups and were not were not with a parent or guardian when they approached the border. And like I said, that has been something, and having lived in Texas and knowing and having been to the border quite a bit, but also having known people that have worked along the border and some people that I know in law enforcement and Border Patrol, that's an ongoing issue that they deal with all the time, and trying to figure out what to do with these kids, with these minors that don't have anyone to claim them. And sometimes they can't even tell them where to find the guardians or parents that can claim them, because sometimes they split up to come to try to cross, or they're back in a town and in the middle in like middle or southern Mexico, and they don't have a home phone number, and so I mean there's a lot of issues with all of that, and the Border Patrol and detention centers trying to figure out what to do with those kids is an ongoing nightmare, and has been, like I said, for decades. So I know that that's a large number of the kids. I've just yet to see, like, I've seen a lot of claims, and I've seen a lot of like, well, so-and-so said, or ABC News says, or whatever, but I still haven't seen the actual like reports that show me how many. Not that it matters that much. I would like to know. I'm curious. But yeah, that's a problem. But pretending like those are children that were separated from their parents by our government and by our border agents is absolutely disingenuous or it's ignorant at best, or at worst, it's a bald-faced lie in order to inflate numbers and to push narrative.
Yeah, it's all about narrative at this point, because he did exactly what the Dems said that they wanted. He signed an executive order to make sure the families could stay together, and that none of that was enough. What is becoming apparent to me is, the left is all about just open borders, let everybody come in that wants to, there should be no consequences, and they keep proving it time and time and time again. And sorry if I sound distracted, but I just saw a hashtag that was trending, and I would like to say that I called this first right here on Jenn and Rick. ABC has announced a spinoff of the Roseanne show called The Conners. It is a go for a 10 series first run, or 10 season first run, or 10 episode first run, sorry. I'll learn to talk again in a second. And apparently will not feature former named star Roseanne Barr. Fun times.
I'm interested to see like how that would go, what they would explain her absence as.
Well, I mean, let's not forget, they already killed Dan off and brought him back to life once.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they get very creative, obviously. Like, LOL, that was a dream.
So, yeah, apparently, like, most of the last season of Rose was a dream, because I don't know how much of the reboot or you watched, but one of the first episodes, they explained all of it. Like, she's down in the basement cleaning stuff up, and she's pulling out the book that at the end of the original series actually got published, and that was around the same time that they won the lottery and Dan died and all these other things that happened. And then so she's looking at this manuscript and she's like, if only this had gotten published. And then John Goodman looks at her and says, well, if only you hadn't killed off the best character.
Yeah, it just never really I don't know. I did see that episode and I saw a few more, but that part of it they never could quite sell me on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just a way for them to try to bring everybody back together. I don't know if whoever was writing towards the end of the last season just kind of went, we're just going to let whatever happens is the last season anyway. And then they started trying to walk it back. I don't know. The same thing happens on soap operas, though. I don't know if you any of those, but I have one that I blame my grandmother. So let's just say long, about 37 years. So the thing about it is, the funny thing is, there's not any type of like a running Bible or anything for these shows. So the one I watched is Days of Our Lives. So when I first started watching the show, the Brady's, which were one of the main central family group, ran a fish market. So there were characters that were there at the time that, had been written out, and then like 20 some odd years later they bring them back. Well, when they came back, the Brady's were then owning and running a pub because their fish market had burned down, and they'd used the insurance money to buy a pub, and they'd been running it ever since. Well, one of the central characters then, which was a kid named Max, who is now an adult, who was on the show when the Brady's ran the fish market, was in one of his soliloquy moments talking about how things used to be, and he's like, man, I remember sweeping the floors of this pub when I was a kid. I'm like, you lying bastard, you were sweeping floors of the fish market. Somebody needs to tell you how your shit was supposed to go.
Which one is this?
Days of Our Lives.
Oh, Days of Our Lives. Yeah. Oh, Brady's. Duh. I should have known. Yeah, I used to watch that one a little bit. I also have like some that I keep up with a little bit because same kind of thing, like Grandma and Mom, and there's a nostalgia about it. And also you can miss like a full 18 months and still catch up in like less than a week.
Yeah, within like 3 episodes, you're like, oh, okay, I've caught up now. Cause
I got it. Oh, they're back from the dead. Okay, they slept with so-and-so. Oh, they found out their brother and sister. Okay, cool. All right, we're all squared away.
Although the one that's not really like that, which is one my wife started watching, is a show called The Bold. What the hell? I'm going to go with it.
Hey, I watched The Bold and the Beautiful.
That one is weird because like my wife watches that one, and every once in a while, if I don't have anything else she's watching, and I'll sit down and watch an episode, and it'll be like 4 or 5 weeks since I've sat down and watched one. And I mean, these people, the Days of Our Lives, they have what I like to call the couple swap do-si-do. So you got the same 5-6 characters all like, for 6 months they're going to be with this person, then they'll move on to this person. And it's like this big country square dance where you're swapping partners. This show does it on steroids. I mean, within like the 6 weeks that I haven't watched, these people have already broken up, gotten divorced, remarried 14 times, and I'm like, only in California.
Oh, no, it is absolutely insane on Bold and the Beautiful.
I have to tell you, one of the first storylines I ever really started paying that really good attention to when my wife started watching the show was the one with the transgender chick, and I got to say that almost turned me completely off. The weirdest part for me, though...
Yeah, they had several things like that they tried to do just to, they went all full on trying to accommodate everything PC they possibly could, and it got out of control.
Well, they've all done that. I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why my wife and I stopped watching Days of Our Lives for a while, because the gay storylines got so intense. I mean, it's one thing when you're watching a TV show and your kids walk through the room and you're like, we should probably change to something else because, there's things going on with a man and woman underneath the sheets, and you're like, we should probably change. And then you got your niece and nephew walking through the room, and all of a sudden there's 2 dudes under the sheets, and they're like, what are they doing? And you fast forward, change something, anything. I don't want to have this conversation with my 7-year-old niece. Ew.
Well, and the one on Bold and the Beautiful, it was so obvious, like they had to write it in, they wrote it in after the fact, because the whole point of that girl's story, when she initially came to town and befriended some of the Forrester family and, whatever, all the big shots in town, because of course she did. Of course she fell into all of that. She came because she had a baby. Like she had a baby that she gave up. And like there was this whole thing about someone dying, and anyways, but like she'd been a mother and she'd had an abortion and like all this stuff, so they had to completely backtrack all of that and be like, oh no, it was like her best friend's baby who died, and so she had taken on mothering the child, and they just had to like make up a bunch of crap because they decided to all of a sudden, after she's been on the show for 5 years, make her transgender. So it was like, ooh, this is really awkward. It was more awkward because it just did not fit the storyline at all than it was that they were trying to say, oh, here's someone who's a transgender and they're a top model in their industry and blah, blah, blah. All of that, I was like, okay, whatever. They went through the whole, like, are they accepted and all that, whatever. But it was more the awkwardness of completely rewriting, like, not just one storyline, but multiple storylines and having to, like, explain away things that had happened over years of the show.
At least they tried to explain them away. I mean, the one thing I will give them credit for is at least they tried to explain them away. Days just so one of the central storylines for Days for the longest time involved Roman Brady and Marlena. So for those of you who don't know, Roman Brady, like the Marlena Evans, is a psychologist. Well, Roman Brady at one point was actually on loan to the ISA and was chasing the super extra bad villain character dude who was originally played by one guy. Then he got wrote out of the show. So then they brought Drake Hogestyn in, who's now playing another character, and I'll explain that in a second as well. And this is about the time I started watching the show, so this was the only Roman that I ever really knew. So 20 years later, they bring the original Roman back, and then it turns out that the Drake Hogestyn, who's been playing Roman Brady this entire time, was actually a plant by the criminal that Roman Brady was chasing, Stefano DiMera. So then it gets even more interesting, because at that point, Roman, the original Roman, comes back for a bit. John Black figures out he's not Roman Brady. Big old long thing goes on for like several years of him trying to
Marlena gets kidnapped at least 5 times during all of this.
Yeah, at least 5 times. Gets possessed by the
she
devil
always
at least
gets
once.
Kidnapped and held hostage, always.
You forgot about the possessed by the devil part, which I thought was... But then, so years later... They bring everybody back again. So by then they have somebody else playing Roman Brady, who's currently playing the character now. They have Drake Hogestyn playing John Black. Well, this is again one of those rewrites. So Marlena Evans suddenly has husband number 1, who was the husband before Roman Brady and before John Black, who was actually the original guy that played Roman Brady years ago. And apparently he's some psychopath doctor who yet tried to kidnap her again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, my favorite is that in all of the soaps, you don't even have to watch them to like kind of see that this happens. Like between all of the soaps, like it's the same actors, right? So they get, when they leave one show or their contract doesn't get picked up again or whatever, very quickly they get put on a different show. And sometimes they're playing, and sometimes they end up getting to come back to their old show, but sometimes they're playing a different character than what they played. Or it's a show that overlaps, like Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful overlap. They know each other. The families know each other. They're in the same industry, like all that kind of thing. So they have some crossover episodes, but a guy that was killed off on one is now like the big boss on another. So it's really, it's kind of funny. But so it's all incestuous, and trying to keep up if you don't actually watch, then sometimes you'll be like, wait a second, but I thought he was so-and-so, and now he's a brand new character and he's still on the show, but we're all pretending like it's not the same person. Anyways, I don't know. That was a fun little dive into soap opera Hollywood.
So yeah, it's about time for a break.
It's not as crazy as soap opera Twitter, honestly. I mean, like Twitter in general.
Which is honestly, I think, what started us down this conversation, because we were talking about how crazy Twitter was. We're like, hey, I know something else crazy. So one last crazy comparison, and then we got to take the break. The guy that is currently playing one of the Forrester brothers is actually the guy that was playing Max Brady on Days of Our Lives. He's another one that you're like, wait a minute, but like till last week, and I didn't read the article saying you were gone. What are you doing over here? Crap. Like the dude that plays Stefano used to do that a lot. I think he actually really did die, because they eventually wound up writing him out of the shows, and then they used CGI to bring him back for one last episode, and it turns out it was somebody else pretending to be him, supposedly. And then they left this big fade out where they had the guy that was pretending to be him talking to somebody else, and they were like, nice touch with the park bench and the pigeons, and he's like, that wasn't me. So they left the chance for Stefano to come back, but I think the guy that actually plays Stefano is dead. That would be one person that I really hope doesn't get the soap opera shuffle, because that character was so well played by that man. I don't think anybody else could do it. I'm just saying. And on that note, we probably really should take a break, because right now, every man listening to this show is like, we are coming to find you, and we are yanking your man card, you soap opera watching bastard. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. healthcare, freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty HealthShare and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
All right, folks, welcome back. So one of these days, I'll actually get around to doing what I said I was going to do when I finally figure out how to get the Patreon and stuff set up, and I'll actually start recording conversations that we have between the breaks, because then you'll understand why we were about 15 seconds late coming back from commercial. Sorry about the dead air there, folks. We are back. We are live. This is Jenn and Rick, and we are on KLRNradio.com, and typically we do this thing every Tuesday, Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Stay tuned, because when we conclude this show, I'll actually be finishing out the night on America Off the Rails, which will conclude my 3-hour radio trifecta, or 3-hour radio train wreck, whatever you want to call it. Those of you that have been listening for the last 20 minutes, some of you right now are threatening to come find me and pull my man card because we talk soap operas. I don't care. So one thing that I do want to talk about, we kind of touched on one weird story. So Roseanne's ABC's gonna do a show about Roseanne's family without Roseanne, which I think is really, really weird, but we'll see. Also, the Space Force is apparently now a thing. which at first I thought everybody was kidding, and then I started seeing all these stories about it, and I'm like, is he serious? But then I got really thinking about it, and Jen's not going to probably get this joke, but I'm a little miffed that he didn't call it the Star Blazers. I'm just saying. So for those of you who don't know, Star Blazers was an anime cartoon back when anime was cool and before it got all emo. And it's actually the Americanized version of a show called the Yamato. The Yamato was a converted World War II battleship, submarine/battleship that became a space cruiser. And it was like the bestest show ever for when I was like 7 to 9. And I was a little bummed when I realized that we were going to have a Space Force and he didn't name it the Star Blazers. I'm just saying. It hurt my feels.
Well, in general, just Space Force makes me laugh a little bit every time. I'm like, what? The Space Force? The Space Force? I'm like, oh, I just don't know why that seems like nothing but a joke to me.
It seems like, one of the weird B-rated sci-fis, which the funny thing about the British B-rated sci-fi shows is they were usually more scientifically sound than the American sci-fi shows. Like Star Trek is fraught with like sound effects and stuff when you're in space. You can't hear sound in space. But what made Roddenberry a genius was because if you watch the shows where they try to be, more accurate, the space battles are boring as hell because you can't hear anything. So the sound effects make it amazing, even though you're going, you really can't hear any of this in space. But it really makes it a lot more fun to watch it with the laser beams and the torpedoes and everything else.
That's funny. Well, I just think of like it being like a parody, like Spaceballs. You know what I mean? Like I think of it being like Space Force, like here we are, we're coming. I don't know. It reminds me of something silly and like mocking.
I'm your father's brother's sister's cousin's uncle's roommate, twice removed. What does that make us? Absolutely nothing, but you are a member of this.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, it's like every time he does something that I agree with, he just says something completely off the cuff. I haven't really been able to find any story where he's explained the overall concept of this thing that he calls the Space Force. I mean, if it sounds like somebody trying to do a really quick version of the John F. Kennedy thing, where he gave this big, grandiose speech about how we had to be the first people to reach the moon, and if we didn't do it, who was going to do it? We can't leave it to the commies. We got to be the first ones there. And then Donald Trump, 60 years later, we're going to do a Space Force. It's going to be huge. And that was basically it. I'm like, so, why?
What does this mean? What does it mean? I don't even know.
Does this mean that we're going to actually shul space kind? Do you have some secret meetings with the Area 51 aliens that we don't know about that we, apparently we already have spaceships and maybe we don't know? I started having like Stargate flashbacks. Like, because, for those of you who may not know, Stargate, which was originally a movie, was a movie based on the idea that there was an alien race that had come to Earth and they actually had wormhole technology and they had built these gates to basically connect worlds to worlds. So it eventually became a series. And in the series, by the time they were done, because they'd reverse engineered all this different technology, we had like this secret Space Force that nobody knew about. And I'm just like, as soon as he started talking about the Space Force, I'm like, holy crap, it's Stargate. Well, how much else of this show is real? No, I'm just kidding. But it's just one of those things where I'm just like, and it was weird because it was all actually under the command of the Air Force at the same time, which made it even weirder. So I'm like, the Air Force has spaceships. Something about this is not right. But I don't understand if it was some sort of a movement to get us like motivated, to get us to, to get to Mars or lunar colony or go mine asteroids, or are we just talking about I'm going to be the first guy to put a hotel on the moon? Is that what the Space Force is really about? I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't make it.
Well, I know I'm the same way. I'm like, so are we just going to like put up a bunch of spaceships? Like, what's happening here? Like, they're each going to be manned, like with like 8 people, and they're all going to fly in a nice little V around the globe. Like, what is going on? I don't even understand what it means, and that's why I said it just sounds like incredibly funny. Like it's just something mocking, a movie or something. But I don't know. I mean, I know that Trump in particular has been interested in, even in his private life, has been very interested in NASA and space, and so maybe like you said, maybe part of that is a little bit of like motivation, because he wants to continue the space program and keep up with space exploration. I'm just not really sure we need a force, if that's what he meant.
I mean, even if we already kind of have that with NASA? I mean,
yeah, couldn't any team of them be a force at any given time? I mean, we have lots of astronauts. I know it's a small number compared to the general population, but I mean, NASA does employ quite a few astronauts. My childhood neighbor, and I babysat her for years. She actually works in mission control at NASA in Houston. It's really pretty neat. She just had a profile in the Smithsonian's Space and Flight magazine that they did on her, which is really cool. But and she's one of these like total science space nerds that looks like a supermodel. It's like, it's not fair. You're gorgeous. But yeah, she's like always, Facebooking and tweeting, and even when I see her mom and whatever, that always talking about like the new astronaut recruits and the new like class of astronauts and so that's ongoing. We have a lot of them, so it seems like you would just pool from that resource instead of like trying to train military to be Space Force or something. I don't know.
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I'm just the shuttle program. We had routine launches into space. Now we really don't have any of that. It seemed like under the Obama administration, we started pretty much privatizing space, which I'm not diametrically opposed to, because I think privatization of something is what actually did some amazing things, some of these companies. So I don't necessarily know because I mean, anytime the government gets involved in anything, all it really does is seem to retard development. And I'm not saying that in the non-PC way, so don't send me hate mail.
Yeah, I think that NASA has been one of those things that has not been as we haven't put as much into it over the last couple decades, but I think in general, like, it has been one of those things that has been not as hindered by the typical government bureaucracy as a lot of other programs. I'm not saying it hasn't been at all. I just mean not as much. They have been allowed to be pretty innovative and progress kind of as they wish and hire the best and brightest minds and be competitive and all of that kind of thing. But, because other than Mars, there hasn't been all that much to do, I guess, in the eyes, of a space program for a national government, then it's kind of dialed back a bit, though there has been like a ton of research and they are learning all kinds of things. It's just not like wowing things like the public wants to see, like walking on the moon. It's much more under the radar than that, and very like scientific. But I think that space exploration and just astronautical science and all of that kind of thing is so important to have in the private sector, obviously. And I think that it's important for the government to maintain some sort of foot in it as well. But I think that can be totally different than from like what we're seeing from some of these other groups that are just doing some really amazing things that really the government has no business being involved in or attempting to do, because to what end, for what purpose? So much of this is just exploratory for the sake of being so, and being able to, launch things certain ways and get them to certain places in the atmosphere. So I think, as with all things, yes, I think that privatization and the competition that comes from it is very good.
So one other story real quick, because we're talking about privacy, things like that. My inner libertarian is actually a little bit pleased today. The White House has actually announced plans to merge several bureaucracies, which I have really, really staunch libertarian friends are mad because, their Department of Education and a few other groups are actually under the gun for possibly being merged, and all my really, really uber libertarian friends are like, why didn't we just get rid of them? I'm like, baby steps, at least they're doing something. Because I'm a fan of government getting smaller and more efficient. I have been for decades. I think our government at both here in Oklahoma, our state government has grown gargantuanly. Our government in Washington, D.C. has definitely done so. And the DOE has really done nothing to further the education of the American child. You can give them all the credit that you want, but, if you go back and you look back, we had kids when high school stopped at 8th grade because everybody was still farming. Kids were learning Latin in 8th grade. They can't do anything without emoji now. Just saying.
Well, it's like when they started taking, like my younger cousins, their grandma started doing lessons with them. They were also with her a whole lot, especially on the weekends. But she started doing lessons with them because even though they were all decent students, we all were like, wait, what's going on here? When we would have like family birthday parties for Christmas, and they would open up a card and they would be stumbling around and not able to read it. You know why? They didn't learn cursive. So they didn't know how to read any cursive. Now, they might have been able to read, like, some stuff, obviously, but it was very difficult for them, and especially with the way that everyone has different handwriting. So their curves and angles and everything, and you know that there's like 5 or 6 different ways to write almost every letter that there is in cursive, in a variant of cursive. So they were they're 10, 11, 12 years old and struggling through even being able to like recognize words in cursive. So she started actually teaching them on her own. But there's all sorts of things like that. That's just like, I get that it's the computer age, and so some things seem unnecessary, but man, there's still just some. I think there's still such value to some of these old school foundational blocks.
So first things first, tell your grandmother I'm not happy teaching cursive. I had planned on using cursive as a secret language to make fun of youngsters as I get older because they wouldn't be able to read it. Now she's ruining my plan. Now, to take this a bit more sinisterly, I think there's another reason there. Look at all of our historical documents. What are they written in?
Calligraphy and cursive, yeah.
So, I mean, if you get to the point where you have people that can't read those documents, the only way that they're going to be able to read them is to see them online. How easily can things be edited online? Case in point, what Google recently did to the California Republican Party wiki page.
Oh, no, what was that?
They basically put a line item in about the Nazi group.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And I just saw something the other day that I reported that was on a Wikipedia page, too, that was like politically, biased along some line like that, that some person that contributes and is an editor decided to go in there and put. And I, and you can, like, as someone who's looking at it, you can report certain things. And I did, and it was gone not too long later, but it was something kind of like that. And it's just like, ugh. And, for so many people that, like, Wikipedia is gospel, man.
Yeah, don't tell that to any of my professors, because when I was first going, actually, my second trip to college, not more than once, I know, weird thing for conservative adult years, in and out of academia. Course is finished, because I still plan on getting my doctorate at some point if I can ever finish. I'm just not quite sure if that's ever going to happen now that I'm 45 years old. God, I'm old. But anyway, so I remember when I went back to school, when I started working on getting my IT certificates, we actually had papers that we had to write in IT class, believe it or not. And one of the first things that the professor said is anybody who cites Wikipedia gets an F. I was like, ouch. But because it is so easily edited. It's like, and I talk to people about this all the time. I'm a former private investigator. When I was coming up and going through all the different trainings that I've had and the different aspects of law enforcement that I've been involved in since I've been 21 years old, and I'm now 45, there were things that were not admissible in court now that are considered, or that were not admissible in court then that are considered admissible in court now. When I was doing this type of stuff, you actually had to have like actual paper photos. You had to have actual paper printouts of the things that you were showing in court because it was easy for you to show that they were not able to be edited or duplicated in any easy fashion. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy when I see all these people that, well, this says this and this is proof. And I'm like, dude, it's a digital image. Do you know how easily that can be manufactured? And to prove a point, I did this to somebody once with the help of my cousin, who's actually really good at coding. I actually went in and we changed one of our Facebook pages to where it said it was founded in 17.
Oh.
And then we're like, well, it's on the internet, so it's got to be true. And it said that we joined Facebook in 1776. So we must have joined Facebook in 1776 because everything that's on the internet is true. And they're like, but the internet wasn't around in 1776. And we're like, exactly. This is how easily things can be manipulated in the digital age. That's why anytime anybody's talking to me about this type of stuff, when they started talking about the Russia this and the Russia that, I'm like, stop showing me digital archives of crap. If you are going to show me something, I want to see something that is tangible, that cannot be easily manipulated, and then I will believe it. And they're like, you are a dinosaur and you are a moron. I'm like, I don't care. That to me is stuff that can hold up in court. That is stuff that can pass scrutiny. Is actual pictures, not digital camera pictures like old school, had to shoot it with a camera, roll of film pictures, because those are really, really hard to manipulate. No digital recordings, because those are really, really easy to manipulate. Trust me, I do it for a living, all day, every day. I edit video and audio for multiple clients. It's really, really easy to splice things together. I actually proved this to a client once. I actually put together a recording of them telling me that they were going to give me their house, their car, and $1 million. And they were like, I never said that. It's like, I'm going to take it to a judge. But I never said that. But I'm still taking it to a judge. But I never said that. I was like, I know, but I'm proving a point. Because because we were having a conversation one night over a beer. And I told him, I said, dude, I can literally make you say anything I want you to say using digital media if I have enough of you using your words. And I can make it believable, because by the time I'm done with it, they won't be able to tell that it was edited, because I can run it through multiple filters that make it sound like actual human speech. By the time I'm done, he's like, there's no way. There would still be a way for them to be able to tell. So I'm like, okay. So I was like, come back and see me next week. So we go out to the bar. We're having a beer. I've got my little recorder. I hit a button, and I say, okay, so I want you to hear this. So we finish the beer. We go outside so we can actually hear, and I played it, and it sounded, and I put in background noise, like it sounded like we were talking outside. I had cars honking and everything else. So it sounded like I was recording an actual outside, normal, everyday conversation. And by the end of the conversation, because it had us going back and forth, he's like, man, I just want to tell you something. You've done such a great job for me that the first thing I'm going to do is sign over my house. And I'm like, no, man, you don't have to do that. And he said, oh, by the way, I want you to have these car keys. I'll get you the title next week. Oh, no, man, you don't have to do that. And oh, by the way, I have $1 million in my bank. I'm going to transfer it over to your account. I just need the routing and the account numbers. And he's like, oh, my God. I said, I told you, this stuff is really, really, really easy to manipulate. It's one of the reasons why when everybody's flashing all these screenshots of all these different things all over social media, I'm like, I don't really know whether I can or should believe that, because it's really, really easy to fake things like that.
Absolutely.
But anyway.
Well, there is something that's really sad that happened today.
I know. I was wondering if I don't want to talk about it, but we have to.
Yeah, well, that's why I kind of figured we'd do it here at the end when we don't have a whole lot of time. But yeah, so Charles Krauthammer has passed away, and it's been not even 2 weeks since he put out, since he wrote kind of an op-ed letter to readers, fans, the world, about his ongoing health issues, and that he was at the end of the road, and that he probably had weeks to live. And it just still seems like it passed so fast, and that it came so quick. And he was such a measured and a measured and principled person who just was really brilliant. And even when you didn't agree with with his position on things, he was just immensely knowledgeable in the subjects he spoke on, and had such a way of really supporting his position without ever getting personal or nasty or vile about anything, and without attacking someone else or what they believed, or he was just so poised. And I think it's a real loss.
Yeah, I'm really, really sad, because JD and Stacy actually hadn't seen, and they actually took pictures with him. They talked with him for a few minutes, and I didn't get to go. Another guy that I've gotten to know through CPAC, got to meet him. Actually, his header is a picture of him hanging out with a bunch of folks from Fox News, and Krauthammer was one of them. And he was talking about it the other day, and I'm like, that's the one thing I really regret, is starting to get to the point where I was running in some of the same circles, and he was somebody that I never got a chance to meet. I've gotten to meet a few people that were on Fox, here and there at the conventions, but he was never one that I managed to get a chance to talk to, and I was kind of sad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I know, like, a lot. I was interested to see that when his letter came out a few weeks ago. I was really interested to see how many people had really not ever known about him. They were like, oh, well, is he the guy that, like, sat there really stiffly and looked funny and, whatever. And it was amazing to me, like, so many people did not know that he, when he was in his first year at Harvard Medical School, that he had he dove into a pool too deep. Like, he dove too deep and the pool was too shallow, and it left him permanently paralyzed from the neck down. So when people are saying that guy that was really stiff and looked a little funny, yeah, he broke his neck and smashed his head into the bottom of a pool and still persevered and completed his degree, and has gone on to do all of the amazing, written for all of the major publications that he has, been a consultant, been on, obviously on various cable news networks, in addition to his medical career. So it's just really, his life was very impressive, and he'll be very missed.
Yeah, political discourse says there aren't any clear voices anymore. It kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about with Twitter earlier. It's all just a bunch of mudslinging now. Everybody's dug in. They've found their positions. They're not giving up on them, and they don't care. And that's, I had a friend of mine that I was having a conversation with before the EO ever got signed, and I was talking about the fact that, Mexico is actually helping these people get here. They have a wall on their southern border that they basically fling the wide open as soon as anybody says Los Estados Unidos. And then as they're going through Mexico, they have all of these groups that are like, if you're trying to get to America, you should do this, and this when you get there. Well, it'll make sure that you get in, and these are the services that you can apply for. And I'm like, dude, Mexico's turning a blind eye to this because they know that just as many of their poor people are using it as everybody else. And he's like, so what's the big deal if there are groups that are trying to help people get asylum if they deserve it? I said, the problem that I have with that is we have people that are being coached to say that they need asylum even if they don't. So our border checkpoints are so overwhelmed that we have people that have been sitting there for days and haven't even been able to get processed because we have so many people that are sneaking into the border right now that they've limited our number of ports of entry to try to help regulate it a bit more. And they started a zero tolerance policy to start trying to catch the people. And the thing that nobody was talking about was this zero tolerance policy situation in the long term was actually helping them, not hurting them. Because what they would do is if the first time, and most people don't know this, but the first time you come into the country illegally, it's actually just a misdemeanor. So, but for all of the liberals, they're like, oh my God, it's a misdemeanor. It's really no different than a seatbelt ticket. That's not true. A misdemeanor can actually involve jail time. The fine is never to exceed $1,000, and they can be jailed for up to a year, depending on the seriousness of the offense. So them being arrested and detained is not uncommon for a misdemeanor. It does happen. So by them being detained, it then gives them the ability to fast-track the hearing, and if they agree to go back home, they're usually separated from their family 1-2 days tops. They get time served. They go back across the border. It's all done. But the issue that we have is when they start talking about, well, I only came here so I could get asylum. So then we have rules that were signed into law under Bill Clinton that say that we can only hold a minor for up to 20 days while this is going on. Well, if we did the usual catch and release thing and said, okay, here's your court date, come back later, it's sometimes years before we even get them on the docket. By then, they've moved 5 or 6 times without telling us where they've been. We've lost track of them. We don't know where they are. So at that point, we've basically just given them de facto, you might as well be a citizen because you're already here. By them leaving them in custody and processing them in the way that they have been up until now, they're actually getting their hearings done within 60 to 90 days tops. Now, keep in mind, these people are coming from places where they've been sleeping in mud holes. They've had nothing to eat. They have no food, no blankets, no clothing most of the time. They have basically what's on their backs. And you're telling me that because we're keeping them in a building where they have bed, blanket, even if it's a bed on the floor, blanket, food, and water, it's worse than where they came from, then go the hell back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, like, everybody is just, and I actually said this earlier, I was like, neither side truly wants to actually fix this. First of all, the Democrats don't want to fix it because that would mean that the Republican Congress did it. And so they can't let them have something like this as a notch on their belt, get to take credit for the rest of all of history for helping migrant families, illegal or otherwise. I mean, I'm not even going to make a distinction when I'm talking about that right there. We could be talking about legal immigration. We could be talking about illegal immigration. We can talk about what to do about kids that are brought here when they're very young and know no other country because they were raised in America. We can talk about which includes a bunch of the DACA people. We can talk about the people that overstay their visas. I'm umbrellaing them all right now. And when I say that the Democrats will not be serious about this issue with the Republicans in control, not only of Congress as a whole, but if they're ever in control of either house, because they cannot let them have that win. So don't fool yourselves into thinking that they actually give a crap about these people the way that they're acting like when they're standing up at their podiums and wiping away tears from their eyes. Because if they did, they would work with the Republicans right here, right now, and they would have, by the way, done that 20 years ago too, and they didn't. So, and I think the Republicans are a little bit less on the hook here because they're the ones that actually are hard on immigration and don't believe in all of the things fundamentally the Democrats do about these people and about what our country needs to offer them. And so, I don't think they're the ones on the hook for this, but I do think that there's a big enough consensus that wants to go ahead and try to fix various parts of this situation, and they would compromise a little bit on some of it. And they're not going to be able to do it with the Democrats standing, basically like pushing them down at the shoulders and dunking them underwater, which is what they're doing.
Well, the reason they didn't fix it 20-some-odd years ago when Bill Clinton first got elected and they had control of things is because back then they sounded a lot like Republicans. Now, what I want to know is... Absolutely, but I was going to say the other thing real quick is that, the other thing real quick that just completely left my mind. Never mind, go on. But then my question for everybody that's like having their meltdown about it now, let's not forget they had control of all the things again from 2009 to 2011. Why didn't they fix it then? If this is
agreed, and here's another kind of extremely cynical view, and I know it's not every Democrat or every Republican that's in Congress or every Democrat or Republican of that have a position as influencers in our party, but in general, I think the very cynical and even sinister answer to that is because what would they fundraise off of? Either one of them.
Pretty much.
If they fixed it to the point where it was really actually a compromise for both sides, and you're not going to make the extremists happy ever, but if you could make the majority of the country and the majority of each party pretty decently happy with it, then they would have. That is such a major fundraiser for both of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
They wouldn't have it.
All right, so we're back around well over the top of the hour, so since I got to do my other show next, why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you're not on the radio hanging out with me?
Oh, mostly on Twitter. I'm at J Homestead, and Facebook JR Homestead, and please check out misfitspolitics.com. If you're bored on a Friday night, we kick off Misfit Mischief tomorrow night at 8:30. Do I do it 8:30 Eastern? Yes, that's right, 8:30 Eastern, for mostly non-political fun. But even when it gets a little bit political, it's still all in good fun. Caption this, and GIF answers to stuff and things like that. So it's a great way to meet people that are also have a good sense of humor and like to have fun on Twitter, and it helps make the week kind of end on a high note. So join us.
Yes, please do. All right, so I am Rick Robinson. I'll be back with you again here in just a second to kick off the America Off the Rails show. You can follow along with me if you want at Radio Host Rick. You can also find me on Facebook by searching Rick Robinson. You can also find me on Instagram at Radio Host Rick. I think that's my handle over there. I don't know. I'm still new to the Instagram thing. It involves pictures, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that yet. But follow along anyway. We'll figure it out together. I'll be back with you here in a couple of minutes. We're going to kick off the America Off the Rails show, the slightly later than usual edition, but we're going to get through the whole show anyway. We'll see you guys in just a bit.